Hello everybody, I'm Dave Garratt from Open to View. I'm an ex-real estate agent and a media provider in Wellington to the real estate industry. Today I'm talking with a couple ragamuffins from LPM, Leaders Property Management in Wellington. I have Beni and Jerram. How are you going, guys? You're all good?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
I wanted to have a little chat with you guys because I'm a real estate owner, investment owner, but I've never really gone down the road. I look after them myself, so I've never really gone down the road of having a manager to do that. So I really don't know too much about what you guys do. In terms of a little bit of a backstory, where is Leaders Property Management? Who are they? When did they start? That kind of thing. So going from the very beginning, when did Leaders Property Management start, approximately?
This is your forte, man. He's been here longer than me, so yeah.
1987.
Wow, that's a long time. Is that the earliest property management company in Wellington, or it must be very close to?
I think it's a very good chance that it is.
Back in the 80s,
yeah,
people wouldn't have everybody would have done their own thing, right? They wouldn't have had management.
Yeah, very few people, I guess. I mean, I wasn't here at the time, obviously, but Marie, who is the boss of the business, she was here. So
wow.
She started it. It's the same year that the RTA was.
What's the RTA?
Released, the Residential Tenancies Act.
Oh, okay. So that is the residential form that tenants and then owners sign?
No, this is the legal framework.
Oh, the legal framework behind it, right.
So as soon as that was made a thing in the country, the company was basically formed. So
in terms of you guys personally, how long have you been here, Jerram?
Nearly 10 years, 10 years
Whoa,
in March.
10 years, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And Beni?
8.
8 years, doing the same thing.
Yeah, I guess it's changed over time.
Right.
So, I walked in one day and asked for a job.
Because your mum was in real estate, right?
She was in real estate, and so I decided I was never going to do real estate.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be an agent specifically, and I still don't want to be an agent. But I took some time off work out of a sales role.
Yeah.
Had some deep thinking about what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I just decided after some serious reflection that this
was
what I wanted to do. And then looking at all the companies in Wellington, trying to figure out who's a good fit.
Yeah.
I basically went off Google reviews, trying to find out who was highly reviewed.
10 years ago. 8 years ago.
8 years ago, yeah. So this company only had 26 reviews at that point, but it was
they were all good.
5-star. All 5 stars. So there was 2 companies in Wellington that had good reviews.
Yes.
Very polarising in property management industry. So you've got the really good guys and you've got the really not so impressive guys, I think. So
this might be a naive question, but what do you think differentiates really good from not so good in terms of property managers?
Service and communication.
Right.
Yeah.
That seems fairly simple to me. So why wouldn't the guys that don't do it well...
Simple but hard to do. You know? Simple to understand, but when you get busy and when...
Yes.
We always talk about this in property management. You start your day and you think you know what you're going to do for that day.
Yes.
And you've got 12 different things that are going to need your attention.
Yeah.
And then there's just a channel of new work flowing in all the time and you have to pop it through the day. And so
you're always
trying to
reprioritising and filtering
and going,
in terms of busyness.
I better do this now.
Right.
I better do this now. And so I think the reason this company runs so well is Marie saw the need to break out asset management and financial early.
Yeah.
And so those roles have been separated away from the property managers for a long time.
Right, because you have to have a trust account, do you?
Well, we don't, but we did. So the industry was regulated until 2008.
Yes.
And then they just gave up on property management and kicked us out.
I did not know this.
It is now the Wild West. Anybody can do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can have zero qualifications, zero. You're not signed up to any kind of authority that's regulating you. And you can just run a company. You don't have to have a trust account. You can run it through your personal account. Whatever you like.
Can you really?
It is the Wild West.
So where's the sheriff? Who has control?
There is no sheriff. That's the thing.
So why would they deregulate?
There's no REA. There's no... Yeah.
Why would they deregulate this industry?
I don't know.
It seems like everything is going the opposite way.
Yeah. We almost got back to being regulated last year. Labor
Right.
government had a bill that they were putting through,
Yes.
but it's been shelved.
So close. So close.
So close. We wanted it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because
you're doing things
We're doing
that would
things
fit
as
well
if
with the
we were
framework.
already regulated,
Ah.
and then everyone
but
who's
not everybody does.
No. And they will have to.
These are interesting things, people, isn't it? Yeah, that's good. So just back to LPM. How
Leaders
many...
Property Management, because there is an LPM.
Oh, sorry,
that's
yes, there is.
Wellington
Yes.
Property Management, I believe.
Right, Leaders Property Management. And you're based in Thorndon. You're working out of
the Resine building.
the Resine
on the
building.
first floor,
On the same floor, we have Ray White Wellington, their main base. How many properties do you guys look after with your team, approximately?
400, just over, a touch over 400.
Right. And how many people work here?
7.
How many people? You've got 7 in the team,
Yeah.
but how many people actually deal with the properties directly? Because you've got your financial side that is separate.
Yeah, so the structure is basically property managers over in that corner.
Yep.
And 4 property managers.
Yes.
Each roughly with about 100 properties.
Right.
Then you've got your financial controller, Denise.
Yes.
You've got your asset manager, Alex.
Yes.
And then you've got Marie, who's
Yes.
the director.
Right.
And so those 3 guys are on this side of the office.
Yep.
We have 100 properties, but because we've got asset management and financial controller on the side, helping
Yes.
us with those parts of it,
Yeah.
it leaves us a bit more free to kind of work on, good marketing, understanding the legislation,
Yeah.
handling any disputes,
Right.
and keeping our communications up.
Gotcha. So, to me, from the outside, 100 properties seems like it could potentially, depending on the stock, and that's a big thing, right? In terms of managements, you want good quality properties that are going to keep tenants for a good period of time, not require too much maintenance, so you get less turnover, less involved.
Yeah.
Do you take any property that comes your way, or do you filter? Can we say that? Can I
Yes.
ask this
Yeah,
question?
yeah. No, we definitely filter. We're quite picky on the properties that we do take on board.
Yes.
Because to make our lives as
Yeah.
stress-free and as easy
Yeah.
as we possibly can, we want good properties because
Yes.
they attract good tenants.
Yes.
Look, there's always going to be issues along the way, or there's always going to be little things that crop up with any property. There's always unpredictable
Yeah.
things that come along the way. But yeah, we're quite picky, making sure that the properties are
Yes.
up to a certain standard.
Yeah.
Healthy Homes compliant in particular.
Okay.
That's a big one. But yeah, they've got to be sort of well maintained, well looked after.
Okay, we'll come back to healthy homes because I want to talk about that. It's an area that I know a little bit about, but not a lot about. That's interesting. So, do you think, when you're looking at your stable, your portfolio, do you have like investors that have quite a number of properties and you deal with them, or looking across the board, would it be mum and dad investors that have 1, maybe 2 properties that you look after? Would that?
Yeah, I'd say for us, our portfolio probably differs from other companies in that regard, that we are more one owner, one property.
Yeah.
Mainly,
Yeah.
90+%
Yeah.
is you're kind of dealing with one client.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, it's their home.
Right.
So it's somebody who's lived in that home and either they've headed overseas for 5 years,
Yeah.
or they've purchased a new one and they're going to hold on to it as an investment property.
Yep.
But yeah, not common that we have people that will buy, continue to buy and have us managing their huge portfolio.
Yes.
And also not common for us to buddy up with developers and end up being given
Right.
a dozen of this or 6
Yeah.
or 8 of
Okay.
these. Yeah.
Okay. The people that you have on your books, are they living locally but still decide to use you guys to manage the property because they don't want to be direct with tenants, or is it more a remote situation where people have gone overseas and they've got their property here and they need someone to look after it? Could you make it all like that, or is it kind of all over the show?
It's definitely a mixed bag. I would say the majority are outside of Wellington.
Outside of Wellington. So you, by law, you have to have a property manager if you're outside
Of New Zealand.
outside of New Zealand.
2
Okay.
weeks.
That's right.
For more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is crazy
So
because you
pretty-
go for a 3-week holiday.
But now
right?
that it's deregulated, that can be your mate across the road, effectively.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
If you appoint him as your agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I was to make looking around, and what would be the benefits of hiring a property manager to look after my property as opposed to either looking after it myself or getting Uncle Bob, who's in the next suburb, looking after it? This must be something that you have to deal with all the time.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, because it's such a DIY culture, they do struggle to see why they should pay somebody or pay somebody, you know, because we're 8.5% plus GST on rent collected. It's the main line item fee that we make our money off.
Yeah.
Why do we need to pay you so much money to look after our property? There's two reasons I've found when you compare a long-term private landlord versus a property manager.
Yeah.
Say if you tracked 2 case studies for 5 years, what you would find is that the property would degrade in quality most probably if it's a private, because inspections are not done regularly.
Yes.
It just is a simple fact. There will be some that do, but very, very few. So private
I would
landlords,
put myself into that boat because I've got 2 rental properties, and I generally only visit if the tenant makes contact with me and says there's water leaking down the back of the toilet.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, this is you get busy. And it's fine. And
it's out of sight, out of mind. If they're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But do you know what your insurance policy says in regards to
That's
inspections?
it, right? So I have to, I think every 3 months I'm meant to go visit.
Yeah, that's the norm.
Which I try to do, even if it's a drive past. When I'm picking kids up from school, I'm like, I've just visited my property.
Well, I'll tell you what they need.
They'll ask for photos.
They need a report with the date on it, who inspected, photos that, you know, to show that you were there. And then that substantiates if you have a claim. Because they will ask.
I might be talking to some property managers to manage the properties.
No, you'd be surprised though. They will ask for that information.
Yeah, right.
We've gone through a few insurance claims recently, and they're getting more and more pedantic on those.
It's getting harder and harder to get a claim across the line. So if you don't have your reports, real easy for them to just kill the claim. So there's that. So basically, you have your inspections, and then as a result of that, we're often putting in constructive feedback as saying, this needs upgrading, that needs upgrading. Because if your property does start to slide, and we've noticed this over the last 3-4 years in particular, good products are still moving, but average, tired, dated products, you just cannot get them to go. You even drop your rent. You drop your rent below market and you still can't get people for them. So you kind of have to be healthy homes compliant. You have to look good. It has to be clean. It has to be relatively well maintained and modern. So when you go with the property manager, you're kind of choosing to go the slightly more costly path, but you're gonna stay on the right level because you're gonna keep your property insured, you're going to keep it current, it's going to still get good tenants on any market.
Very good.
And the other thing is you're going to stay current with the rents, because oftentimes we'll come across private landlords and they'll say, you know, we've had this tenant for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and the rents just tend to kind of track a bit behind market. And you'll find that, you know, Wellington City Council rates will not let your property fall behind in what they charge you for rates. And your insurance company, which probably won't cover you
I know that. With rates going out today or early next week, I know this.
And then your insurance will go up, and then when the mortgage rates go up, they'll all go up. But your rent might be sitting. Sometimes people are literally getting half what the market would provide for their property. So you feel like you're paying all this money for this service, but you're probably keeping your property current, you're keeping it risk-free because it's insured, and you're getting market rent to help you counter all those costs that you have. So I think it's the logical choice if you're not going to run your private operation like a property manager. So if you're not going to do your inspections and your rent reviews and your renovations.
You guys must... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, what we often see is private landlords, they tend to build a bit of a relationship with their tenants, or they have a family member or a friend of a family member living in their rental property. For that reason, they tend to struggle when it comes to increasing the rent. And they're reluctant to do that. So they just leave it as is for 10 years. The tenant knows they've got a good run. They'll stay there for as long as they can. And they just fall way back when it comes to the rent.
Interesting. Well, these are good things to know. what should we go to next? You've mentioned healthy homes a couple times. I don't want to kind of get bogged down in the legalese of healthy homes, but obviously there's a legal framework in terms of renting a house that you need to be up with. With the houses that you have, or the houses that are non-compliant, is it heating that seems to be the biggest issue, or is it insulation? Wellington stock is generally fairly old, right? So anything prior to 70s or whatever is not, it's not going to be quite up there in terms of insulation and that kind of thing. And as a photographer, real estate photographer, I'm through Scody old villas in Kelburn full of students, and they are cold and they are damp. And how do landlords get away with that kind of thing, or non-compliant bathrooms? And so they just sneak it through and hope that nobody complains, maybe.
I think in a lot of cases, yes. So it was such a mammoth task to bring the quality of the stock in New Zealand up.
Right.
And there wasn't the resources on the government side to do that, by literally having basically healthy homes police to do it.
Right.
So the way that it works is landlords are legally required to provide a statement to the tenants in their tenancy agreement showing the level of compliance.
Yes.
And by next year, July, there's no more grace periods, there's no more leniency. Everything just must be
So you're expecting a squad of inspectors with high vis going around checking rental properties? It'll probably be on complaint, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they pushed out that deadline. It was supposed to be this year.
Do you think they would look at property managers first as an easy way to kind of go, so you walk in, so do you get a healthy home inspection? Do the owners pay for an inspection prior to signing up with you guys? Is that how you start?
So we sign up a new client, and that's the first thing that we do, is we get a healthy homes inspector through the property, and it just shows us the state before we even consider taking it to market. We don't take anything to market until we know it's healthy homes compliant. So we get that, we outsource that, get the inspector through.
Is that process, is the inspection process regulated in any way? Do they have to go through certification? Or?
No, I don't believe so. They tend to be building inspectors.
Right.
In a lot of cases, but don't need to be. They will train their inspectors before they set them loose. Because
there has to be some training or knowledge to know how much air goes through that range hood, or
there's no accreditation. So we've got this legal framework that we have to abide by. Everybody's going to have to do it by next year, but the people they're getting in to make the assessments don't have any. Well, you're allowed to self-assess. So it's not necessary that you must have it done by a healthy homes inspector.
Yes.
They're basically just taking that workload. But if anyone's tried to self-assess, you'll see how complicated it actually is, particularly the heating calc.
Heating's the big one.
Because what the calculator asked you, I remember when they produced it and it was like 16 pages of calculus, nobody's going to understand it. They've since turned it into a web form on Tenancy Services, but they want to know the cubic volume of your room, they want to know the envelope of it, with insulation on the walls, up, down, with concrete pad, this, with this double glaze,
cylinder wrapping,
they want to know everything
plastic
about
on
it.
the floor underneath the house. Right.
Exactly. And then based on all of those factors, it will spit out a number and it will say you need 6.4 kilowatts of heating output. So
when somebody comes and chats with you, you have that initial chat, you go see the property, I'm assuming, at that point. Get this healthy homes inspection, have a side discussion as to whether this is the kind of person or that you want to add to your portfolio, both personality of the owner and the property, I would assume. Reading between the lines. You don't want somebody who's going to be narky right off the bat and tell you how to do your job, because you guys know what you're doing, right? What happens after that process? So you get keys, make sure everything's spick and span, and then I guess you just put it out to market. Is that the process?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if the owner's keen, they'll let us get you through to take some photography. That always
I just
helps.
want to do a plug for professional photos. Because you look through Trade Me and the likes, there's still not professional photos across the board, so your property does stand out really well. These guys, that's how I know them. They've used me for 4 or 5 years on some of the properties that they have coming on in their portfolio, so that they get photos at the beginning and they can reuse those photos right through. So there is a little bit of an upfront cost, but you definitely got a lot of value out of them over time.
Yeah.
So photos, and then it goes
live. It goes to a number of different platforms, but Trade Me's, they
and so the owner will pay for the Trade Me ad up front, so that's on top of your fee. Are there any other costs that somebody coming in apart from, so we've got Healthy Homes inspection, potentially some good photos and Trade Me or the like. So there's costs up front. How much do you tell people to put aside when they come to you to manage their property up front? Could be $1,000?
Not quite at the start, because the letting fee that we charge
Yeah.
is typically taken from the deposit of the first 2 weeks rental payment that comes into
Yes.
the account
Yeah.
once a tenant is secured.
Yes.
So to get running,
Yeah.
it's around about $650 that we're
Okay.
asking for.
Yeah.
That's initially we're going to get the Healthy Homes inspection done out of that.
Yeah.
And that's about $250.
Yeah.
And then the rest of that money is reserved for the marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you start vetting tenants at that point.
Yes. And we're lucky to have we're lucky to have the software to make it very easy and efficient for us. So I remember the week that I started here about 8 years ago, I was renting a place for my parents, and for whatever reason, I was doing that in that first week here, separate to my job here.
Yeah.
And so I was getting emails all day, and it was not enjoyable. I must have had, there's a place in Hotaira, 2-bedder, medium price point, very popular part of the market.
Yeah.
And I must have had, 60 inquiries in a few days.
Wow.
And so I couldn't keep track of who was who had viewed, how to get them application forms, what I wanted to do. I almost needed to have an Excel spreadsheet running that I was updating regularly.
Yes.
It was a huge amount of work. So we have a product called Renty.
Yeah.
It does our viewings, it does our applications, it does our tenancy agreements.
And there's a certain amount of synergy. So once you've harvested somebody's name and email address,
it starts just feeding
and what they
through
want,
the system,
what they're looking at, you can feed them into other properties potentially.
Yep.
So a database of prospective tenants.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. So it's very similar on the selling side. You have people come through your open home and you take all that detail, and you can start to piece them together.
We don't do that so much. Like people often say, you got tenants on your books.
Yeah, right.
We don't.
Yeah.
Basically, the market is changing every day. Tenants are out there looking super actively, so they might pick up a property tomorrow, and then they're no longer looking.
Do you think, I've always looked at the whole tenant search thing as being like a 2 to 3 week thing? Would that be fair, or can it be longer?
For them to find a property and
for them to go, I need to move, or I want a rental property, start looking, and eventually decide on something that they are accepted
I'd say
for.
in summer or maybe in November, you might see that, and those are the really active peak times. Where there's a lot of people in the market.
So like a month life cycle for those people in looking mode.
Yeah, but there's the thing is that legislation changed a few years ago, where I think it's after Feb 2021. If you're in a fixed term tenancy, you can automatically lapse into a periodic after that.
Yes.
So you don't have to take the fixed term that's offered, which used to be the case.
Yeah.
As a result, there are a lot more periodic tenancies running, which are the rolling 28 days notice from tenants.
Right.
Tenancies. So a lot of those tenants, when they're in the market, they're a little bit more window shoppy, and they might sometimes give it a few months. So I might see someone I met in August, and I go, "You still looking?" And you're just looking for the right place, So
you guys must have a massive filtering job.
Yeah.
How many places
does it for us?
Oh, okay. How many places would you have, say, that are vacant, looking for new tenants on any particular? Could you say, generally, I would have 2 or 3 properties empty?
2 or 3 is nice.
And my stable of 100.
2 or 3 each, a dozen.
You come into certain times of the year, like student out time, round about now or October, November. They don't want to be.
And then Jan, Feb. Yeah,
so those are busy. Those are your busiest times.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 listings.
Right. So
in those busy times.
10 times 50. That's 500 people potentially.
Yeah.
Well, your emails and your texts must just go nuts. Do you put your phone numbers on the ads?
We be a bit picky
because
sometimes.
man,
Some properties yes, some properties there's just no point. I mean, we try and filter everything through the software into email, and then we can.
Do you, in terms of choosing tenants or trying to filter them, do you at that point, they've liked something on Trade Me, want to have a look at it, do you send them any initial paperwork saying, like a preview kind of thing, just to filter more?
Well, we can actually click a button and send them the application form.
Okay.
And we can also click a button in our system and say, these guys were good. And we can write notes if we want to try and remember.
Yeah.
Because it can get hard to track what that application form that's come in and who that person was, because the physical meeting is really valuable. You get a huge amount of information from meeting a person.
Brilliant.
And this is just something for the tenants, if anyone wants to know how to kind of get the best foot forward if you're applying. Because of the privacy guidelines, basically everybody's using the Renty application form, or most of the property management market is, because it's a Trade Me product.
Gotcha.
It has fractured into 2 stages, stage 1, stage 2.
Yeah.
We get given a stage 1 application form to start, and we often have no idea what we're dealing with. And unless we prefer that, we can't see stage 2. But if it doesn't have information in it, we're never going to prefer it. So I always
fill
say
out
to
as much
people,
information as possible.
Put in a photo so we know who we met and we can correlate that.
Do you find many people putting photos in?
About half.
So you're automatically lifted up the row if you add a photo. Hear that, guys?
Massively, especially when it's busy, because sometimes you might have 16 applications and you've just had 2 viewings with 20 people there each.
Right.
So you just don't know what to do with all these applications. You look at
should they be approaching you, if you are opening a house, say, and there's 10 other people there, should they be approaching you with keenness?
They should be on time, is what they should be.
On time, I like that.
No, they should be on time, and they should be introducing themselves so that we remember who they are.
It's an interview, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the first most important thing in selecting a tenant is the gut feel.
Yeah.
When we meet them at the property, do we get a good vibe? You know, are they friendly?
Yeah. You must get very good at reading people.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Because your portfolio gets burned if you have the wrong people. You're just dealing with those same people again and again and again. And because you're not tied to the property apart from having a management signed up, it's not your 800,000 sitting there. You can be a lot more judicious in terms of the people that you choose. If you don't get the right vibe, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, and if you've got 100 properties to look after, as long as they're all doing what they should, that's manageable.
Yes.
But even if you had 2, where there's massive problems, you know.
Yes.
There's people damaging it, friends coming over there, not welcome parties, problems with the neighbours, like you name it. You've seen everything. You could have one property that would take 20 hours out of your 40 or 50-hour work week.
Right.
So if you had 2, you're working a full-time job on 2 properties, you've got 98 that you can't even look at. So you've got that. It's essential that they all bed in nicely. Yeah. So the vetting process is just so critical.
And this is why this is what relates right back to what we first said. This is why we're so particular about the properties that we take on board. Good properties attract good tenants. And it just makes our lives so much. Yeah, in terms of culling properties, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
As tenants vacate, we'll go through, we'll do our bond inspection just to finalise that tenancy. But as part of that, we'll take a good look at the property and make sure that it's up to scratch.
So if you were to cull properties from your portfolio, it would be around about that time where a tenant vacates. So you wouldn't actually literally kick a tenant out and then go, sorry, it's all out.
Yeah. And we don't often just say, see you later to the landlord. We'll say, look, you'll need to do this, 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 and this for it to be up to our standard, for us to continue managing.
Yeah.
If you're not interested, then it's probably not something that we're keen on continuing with.
Well, that's good. Is there? We're just kind of wrapping up on our half hour. I feel like we could go for another half hour, and this may be part 1. I'll have a chat with these guys about part 2 potentially. Is there any other information or anything else you guys can think of that you'd want to say to people, especially people who have just bought or are looking at buying their first investment property? I don't know.
I'll just say, because a lot of people don't know what property management encompasses, what it costs, what we do for them. If you're unsure and if you're thinking about it, just pop in. Just turn up to the office. We're open business hours. You can
So
see
where
on
are
Google,
you? Where's your location?
Level 177 Thorn Key, upstairs of the Resine building.
Yep, so we're opposite Cotton On, down
City
on Thorn
Fitness
Key,
next door.
and City Fitness next
But
door.
just drop in and just say, look, I just wanted to talk to you for 10 minutes, ask some questions,
Yeah.
and somebody will be here. And,
Yeah,
and
I'll leave the contact details in the description under the video so that you guys can get in contact with Jerram or Beni if you wanted to ask more questions. It's probably prompted more questions than answers, but we've started down that road on a slightly more deep dive in terms of property management. Thanks for listening today. If you have any comments or you want to expand on anything there, just leave us a comment at the bottom of the video. Thanks so much. Thanks, guys, for giving me your time.
No worries.
That's been insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet as.
Excellent.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.